Okay, back again, segment number 7, further elaborating on the word girl. And as I was saying, I've heard this used in the homosexual community between men. And a lot of times, if you met a brother who did not, or who you couldn't pick up either intuitively or knew straight out, who was homosexual or, well, really into same-sex relationships, if he wasn't the flamboyant type, you didn't know. And so a lot of times, if you hear a man refer to a girl, you have to wonder, okay, is he referring to a young woman, or a woman he's putting down as young, or is he referring to a feminine male? Okay, so we have to be very careful about the various different terms and words that we use. And this is just further allowing you all to see how we have spoken ourselves into limited prisons. We think we know, but we don't. We think we're doing it right because someone that we looked at as an authority was the one teaching us, so we consider, well, they got to know it all. We don't know. Okay, now let's look up the word child. Now, child, a young human being below the age of full physical development or below the legal age of majority, a son or daughter of any age, an immature or irresponsible person. Makes you not wish to call yourself a so-called child of God, right? Also allows me to think about some things that I have to change as far as like some past or some things that are happening now. Now back to the session. A person who has little or no experience in a particular area. Children, descendants of a family or people. Child of a person or thing influenced by a specific environment. A person or thing influenced by a specific environment. Okay. Origin. Old English, socalled, which is C-I-L-D, of Germanic origin. Seems like a lot of these words that we use has Germanic origin, right? The Middle English plural childer or childre became children, or children by association with plurals ending in such as brethren. Okay, not finished there though. All right, now I'm sure if you all continue further researching child, once again you're going to come up with something reverting to young servants. Okay, I will read you some more. Let's see here, because there's one specific meaning that I'm looking for. Let's see here. Now, so if a child is supposed to be someone who is young or someone who is irresponsible, then that means that a major percentage of a lot of the adults that we are around on a consistent basis are children. And then it doesn't help when we are being referred to as what? Children of God. What God? What progenitor? Who generated or put out in our minds for us to be children? Now, with the references of boy, girl, and child, I suggest for you all to use terms or use progeny. Progeny refers, well, wouldn't it be easier if I just read it to you, right? Okay, now we have to be very careful of what we refer to ourselves as and also how we help act it out. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing with these posts to teach you all that a lot of what we think we know, we don't. Okay? Now, progeny. A descendant or the descendants of a person, animal, or plant. Offspring. So it's better that we refer to ourselves or refer to our young ones. I think younglings may be a pretty good word. However, I would choose progeny or offspring, descendants. What's wrong with that? You know? I'm sure progeny is not a super big word to where we couldn't use it, you know, because progeny refers to genetic descendants. Children doesn't necessarily say that. A system, a particular system or program can bring into manifestation a child. So I'm wishing for you all to really, you know, feel me on that one, okay? Now, another word that I feel that we could go into is, let's go into father. Okay? You know, this is a pretty interesting word that a lot of us use a lot of times, okay? Now, father. A man in relation to his natural child or children. A man who has continuous care of a child by adoption, an adoptive father, stepfather, or foster father, a father-in-law. A male animal in relation to his offspring. Okay? Christian belief. The first person of the Trinity, God. Okay? 2. Often as a title or form of address, like to a priest. Once again, Christian based. Number 3 is Christian based. Christian theologians, in particular of the first 5 centuries, whose writings are regarded as especially authoritative. Okay? Now, as a verb, fathering, treat with the protective care of usually associated with the father. Be the source or originator. The father can't be the only source or originator. It's part of the originator, along with the woman, which makes what we call an androgyny, when both of them come together as one and become another being. Get into that later. Now, assign the paternity of a child or responsible for a book, idea, or action. A collective. Okay? Now, Now, as that is showing, okay, from a perspective, even though I've showed you some stuff, it seems to me that we have a lot of so-called Christian influenced energy in a lot of the words and different phrases that we use. I'm taught that a father at times doesn't necessarily denote a male or a man per se. That father denotes something that is from outside that aids in the creation. So a lot of times when it refers to in the father from as a father in a metaphysical perspective, when it talks about praying to the father above or praying to the father outside, is dealing with that energy or that spiritual energy that is outside of your physical specimen. These are things that I've learned through studying more science and other esoteric scriptures and metaphysical tablets and things of that sort. Okay. Now, a father doesn't, I mean, even though it says one who's in charge of protecting, however, a lot of times I've been taught too that it's a daddy that takes care of children, not necessarily a father. A father can help create and could sustain, but really don't. I'll go into mother in the next segment. Hotep.